The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. Every single philosophical framework, religious text, or personal ethical model all run around the hedonistic imperative. The point is that true badness, true evil, and suffering all relies on the fact that there are states of consciousness that are dissonant. They are uncomfortable in their own nature. This is what we qualify as bad. And positive is that what feels pleasant, what is valent. These two axes are the core of all true morality and the real point of everything that we humans are striving for. For some people, this sounds kinda lame because they want to believe that meaning is beyond just simple pleasures of life. In a way, what I'm saying is that what truly matters is for you to just feel good. It might seem odd because if you care about a meaningful life and you are driven to be a good father or driven to be excellent in your career, then you have to go through a lot of suffering in order to feel okay. So it might feel like that you don't even enjoy what you're doing, but you're not actually doing it in order to feel good. You're doing it for some other reason, some other real meaningful reason that is disconnected from just raw positive senses. I would inquire this questioning and really boil down what it is that you are qualifying as meaning or the reason for what you do, because you always will end up at a sort of hedonistic or valent oriented system. Nobody wants to put their hand in the fire because the fire hurts. Everybody wants to feel love and compassion because love and compassion feels good. This means that almost etched within the structure of how existence works, there is good and bad. It is not more loading to see things as good and bad. It is the consequence of the hedonic imperative. Suffering is the urgent, most important problem in this cosmos. If you are a conscious being and you understand what it means to suffer, then everything should be done to eradicate the suffering. First and foremost, your own, and then all the suffering in the world. Valence is the true meaning of life. Positive sensations and pleasant experience are by their own nature good, and everything that goes against this is by definition bad. It is a tautological structure that dissonance feels bad and valence feels positive. You might think about your own human body as a system that is constantly trying to find coherence within itself. And the more coherent and structured you function, the better you're going to feel. And all resistance and friction in your life is feeling dissonant and causes the sense that something is wrong and you feel uncomfortable. Nobody wants to feel uncomfortable. Everybody wants to feel valent. And it's precisely this need to feel valent all the time and this running away from the discomfort that makes it seem like it is a meaningless pursuit to follow hedonism. Hedonism as a belief where the only real meaning in life is short-term pleasures is not the hedonism that I'm advocating for at all. When I'm talking about the hedonistic imperative, I'm talking about the urgent need to eradicate suffering and maximize well-being for all beings on this planet. It is not an opinion to say that suffering is bad and blissful experiences are good. They are the nature of the thing, and any sort of relativization is ignorance. You're pretending that the suffering doesn't matter, and the only way you can pretend is to be asleep. This is why awakening usually causes a very negative stream of sense data for a lot of people for a while, because suddenly you've woken up to your own delusions, your own suffering, and how much pain there truly is in this world. And all of philosophy and spirituality is really just about coping with the pain that is in the world and how we have no ability to truly avoid it. I'd argue that even in an infinite universe with infinite imagination and infinite possibilities, eradicating all possible suffering is the highest good, and increasing more suffering is the clear bad. The reason for this is that in order for you to cause suffering in other people, you have to believe that you are separate from the other. If you believe that when you punch or like kick a cat, that the cat doesn't actually feel it because it is not you and therefore it doesn't matter, you are being deluded and ignorant about the state of things. Even though you are not actually the cat in this present moment, the moment you kick it, you still can recognize this cat as real and therefore the pain as mattering. What is so interesting is that the pain mattering is actually the way we recognize that reality matters to us. If there was no pain, there would be no survival instinct. And if there's no survival instinct, well, then everything that we know ceases to exist. On the other hand, the fact that something feels positive when we love another and how meaningful it is changes our entire perspective of the value of life. And when I say love, I both mean your partner or your family, but I also mean the small joys of life. Enjoying a video game or enjoying a movie or enjoying the taste of coffee. When you simply enjoy a facet of qualia, no matter how minute it is in its detail, you are acting on a system that coheres and creates valence. So when I talk about pleasure and positive experience being the point of existence, I'm not talking about anything else but all qualia. Because qualia without egoic conditioning and without social narrative tends to be quite positive. It tends to be coherent in its nature. If you sense the feeling of water on your skin and you meditate on water for long enough, you can feel that just touching water feels magical. There's something beautiful in how it organizes around your skin. Or when you breathe in and breathe out and you focus on how your body follows the breath, there's something very relieving and magical in this act. Now, the moment humans think, I really don't want to get wet, then water is already filtered through your own intentions. There's already friction and dissonance there by perceiving the touch, because now there's a filter that tries to avoid the raw quality of the sensation. This is true for all sense data. And if your mind is constantly fueled with overthinking, narratives about your life, narratives about the meaning of existence, narratives about your own catastrophic failures of the past, narratives about how you are not having the types of relationships that you have, or narratives about not being rich enough or not being successful enough. It seems weird, but these parts of your own egoic architecture make it so that water will feel different on your skin. There's more barrier to the raw sensation of valence. You don't let yourself feel how good experience actually feels like, likely because you have avoided the negative aspects of your own experience. That's why, at the end of the day, the real hedonic imperative is you figuring out how you can be content. It's not about finding ultimate meaning in your life. It's not finding purpose in your life. It's deconstructing everything that is causing you suffering until raw experience is always enough. There is nothing but experience organizing itself in a way that, as a natural modality, feels quite valent and positive. If you want to understand where your own ego architecture has positioned itself in relationship to your sensations and your well-being, then check out my Ego Architecture Audit, where I can help you one-on-one. What is hard to understand is the immense spectrum of valence and dissonance. There's so much suffering out there and so much bliss out there as well. And the scale goes from one infinity to another. There's truly no limit to how much your body can suffer. And there's truly no limit to how blissful things can be. And when you think about the immensity of it all, then there is likely some fear there if you truly understand and grasp how big what I'm saying here is in its implication. It means that all of existence and all of reality is basically a creative play. And what you want is you want to position yourself in that play as lightly as possible, in a way that everything feels easy to move around without much friction. And the moment you enter a loop where friction becomes your baseline, then you can multiply the pain that happens to you. You multiply the suffering by having a mental filter that personalizes very minute things. You might come into an argument with somebody, and then this argument eats at your mood for the next 3 days. And then 2 weeks later, you notice you're still resentful about what happened. This changes your relationship with every minute sensation in your own experience. And the only way you can move through these disruptions is by putting attention to where your body is actually not valent, but dissonant. You can imagine it like your body trying to find homeostasis, meaning a sort of balance where everything equals itself out. If you are constantly chasing short-term pleasures, then of course you are running away from a huge depth of basically dissonant processing. The friction that is happening in your psyche can only shift if you put attention to where the friction is. If you have a negative emotion, for example, then spending time looking at this negative emotion is what processing means. It is basically giving your body and your nervous system and your brain and your mind the space it needs to organize itself from dissonance into valence, from negative experience to positive experience. If you want to short circuit this natural process, then you most likely are just trying to distract yourself with one qualia to another, with one sensation to another. But the real issue is always running in the background. Do this for 5 to 10 years and you're full of anxiety and depression. If you truly care about the nature of all things, then you must care about your own hedonic baseline. How valent do you feel every day when you wake up? The tricky thing is that you need to believe that you can shift drastically. Because I know that when I was in my suffering era, I could not possibly believe that you could just live without all of this pain. I assumed that life is just like this and that there's no way out of it. And this was extremely depressing because I saw my own immense suffering and then I could easily extrapolate it to the rest of the world or this planet. And I was convinced that there's no way that the universe can justify itself. There's just too much pain in relationship to the blissful aspects of life. This is also relating to my last video about antinatalism, which is a position where you don't believe that having children is morally good, or you actively argue that having children is morally negative. Now, it is only morally negative if you assume a negative baseline of existence itself, which is a very egoic bias for the human to have, because it is precisely the ego that wants to pretend it can avoid being human. It is the ego that wants to pretend it cannot experience things, or that it is somehow separate from experiencing, which is, looking at it directly, quite absurd. Since you haven't chosen to experience anything at all, and you suddenly find yourself being alive, this means that there was no aspect of you in control whatsoever, including your ego. There's no one that has control over your own experience, but you are just present. So what happens must be lived. The part that is empowering is the part that can put attention to where it matters. And if you recognize that what truly matters for your own life and well-being is your own well-being, then it becomes natural to orient yourself towards this. And it becomes natural to orient yourself what creates more well-being for other people around you. You must accept that the true moral ground of all things is that unnecessary suffering is evil. If you just hurt somebody for no good cause, you're just hurting yourself. Evil is ignorance. It is pretending you don't know what you're seeing. You're pretending that the pain isn't real. And the same works for yourself. You cannot pretend that your pain isn't real. If you do so, your system won't organize yourself towards valence. You will act healthier, you will think healthier, and the way you move towards your life becomes quite peaceful. And this only works if you orient yourself towards a good hedonic baseline, to see that pleasure and bliss are more than just neurochemical perceptions of your brain, but in a way they are how reality organizes itself in these extremes of resistance and attraction, and that attraction truly is morally good. The more you can care about your own well-being without becoming neurotic about it, without having to obsessively avoid negative experience and move towards pleasant experience, but to value your own life for the pleasantness that is possible, then you naturally stop doing what hurts you. You stop self-sabotaging, because why wouldn't you want everybody to be happy?